Welcome to the Traditional Way Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Shumway. We are presented by the Martial Arts Internet Network, where you can find all things martial arts related on our social media pages and the main app, available on Apple and Google stores, where you can catch up on all the open circuit sport karate news with Inside Scoop. You can catch a movie review with Fists, Kicks, and Flicks, or find out what's happening in the Jiu-Jitsu and MMA worlds on the Winner's Circle. Plus now, exclusive content that is only available on the main app. On this episode, we are going to cover the Junior European Championships that took place in Limassol, Cyprus from the 6th through the 8th of February, where more than 1,200 athletes representing 47 European nations all came together for their chance to win a continental title. With over 39 categories at this event to cover, we're going to jump right into the results. We start in the minus 47 kilogram division, where world number 6 Solom Kikuchia and Hanna Mastrenko would meet in the final. Mastrenko was on a run through this bracket, surrendering only 1 point on her way to the final, whereas Kikuchia would require the century to advance out of the semifinal match. They fought a close fight in the final, but in the end it was Kikuchia that would pull out a 1-0 victory to improve on her bronze medal from last year and secure her first European title. Two newcomers to the WKF would emerge in the final of the minus 54 kilogram division, as Kira Kaluvia and Sophia Ali would face off in the final, both of whom would require the Han Tide to get out of matches in their elimination pools, as they both found themselves in 0-0 draws at some point in that round. They made up for it in the Final Four and both easily won that round to earn their spots in the final, but in the end it was Ali who would pull out a 1-0 victory to secure her first ever WKF medal and obviously her first event. Another newcomer makes the final, as Anna Volek would face off against Diana Popova for the minus 61 kilogram title. Both of these ladies absolutely destroyed their competition on their way to meeting each other, with Volek only giving up 1 point and Popova didn't give up a single point until the final, where Volek would win her closest match of the event, winning the gold of a score of 4-0. This was her first WKF medal. And in the last of the female kumite divisions for the cadets, the world number 2, Madalena Santos, would face off against Lenika Rexepi, with both ladies would cruise through the bracket, winning most of their fights by the 8-point spread. However, they would prove to be evenly matched in the final, where Santos would only score 1 point, but it would be enough to take the win and take home her first European title in the over 61 kilogram division. The young men start out with newcomer Marc Deroche making it to the final for the minus 52 kilogram division, where he would square off against Eduardo Cafasio, with both having some tough fights along the way to seeing each other in the final, where they would put on a show with both of them looking to secure their first WKF medals, but Deroche would pull it out with a 6-5 win to top the podium. In the minus 57 kilogram final, Achille Giuliani and Johan Tanef would meet, although they got to the finals on different paths. Giuliani would have a close match, or wouldn't have a close match until the semifinals, where Tanef would have a couple of close matches in his first 2 rounds. But he made up for it in the final, as he'd pull out the victory 8-3 to secure his first WKF medal. Newcomer Emil Almekametov faces off against world number 1 Rafael Baldassare in the minus 63 kilogram division, as Almekametov had a long day with most of his matches being decided by 2 points or less, and he gave it all in the final but would fall short, losing that match 4-3. But still not a bad way to make your WKF debut. Baldassare would add this gold medal to go with his silver from this division from last year's championships. In the minus 70 kilogram division, world number 8 and 14 match up, as Ricardo De Gregorio and Colin Brody would face off in the final, both of whom would not have a close match until the Final Four, where they both won their matches 3-1 to meet up at their first chance at a WKF medal. They were evenly matched in the final, but in the end, Brody secured the gold after a 2-1 scored match. And in the last of the Cadet Kumite, 2 newcomers make the final, as Omar Gogorishiani and Namanji Idanovic face off in the over 70 kilogram title, both of whom had their share of tough fights throughout this division. And they fought a pretty close fight in the final, but in the end, Gogorishiani would win by a score of 4-2 to secure the title. In the female kata division, Neda Belkas and Candela Garcia make it to the final, as the Shotokan stallion of Belkas had her squeaking by her opponent in the semifinals 3-2, compared to the Shiraru stylist and Garcia, who would only have 2 judges not go her way en route to the final. In the final, it was Garcia's Chatnara Kusanku that would get the nod from the judges, outperforming her opponent's Unsu with all 5 judges in agreement. This is Garcia's first European title. The male kata division had a ton of close matches, and Razvan Floria and Salvatore Valente were the 2 that made it out of the brackets to face off in the final, where Floria would opt for Unsu and Valente would run Chatnara Kusanku. And in another close match, Floria would pull out the victory 3-2 for his first WKF medal. We start the juniors with Ileana Komini facing off against world number 4 Veronika Kutenko in the final for the minus 48 kilogram division. Both ladies had a pretty easy go of it in the elimination pools and both found tough matches in the final 4, but would squeeze by to make it to the final. In the end, it would be Komini who would shock the crowd, taking out the higher seed for her first WKF medal. In the final of the minus 53 kilogram division, world number 1 Leonora Goncalves and world number 7 Veronika Gashnikova both would not be scored on at all on their way to meet in the final, where both fighters having a win rate of over 85%. We thought it was going to be an exciting final. Well, it wasn't, as Gashnikova would remain perfect, upsetting the world number 1 with a quick 8-0 win for her first European title. The semifinals of the minus 59 kilogram division had the closest matches that world number 1 Hanna Sondergaard and world number 13 Morgane Scarfone would see on the way to their final, where Scarfone would be looking for her first WKF gold medal. However, Sondergaard showed why she was the world number 1, winning the final by the 8-point spread and leaving this event with her second European title of her young career. The world number 5 Juliana Baranova and the world number 4 Elise Bald faced off in the final of the minus 66 kilogram division. Baranova was on a great run on her way to the final, not surrendering a single point en route. For Bald, it was more eventful. She required the Senshu to advance out of the first match, and every fight she had was a close matchup for her. In the final, Bald would be the only one to score as she pulled out a 2-0 win and her second European title of her career. A very competitive over 66 kilogram division, as the 2 that would make it out of the final, or to the final, were Una Rakovic and the world number 2 Nicole Corredu. Now, Corredu breezed through the elimination round and didn't have a close match until the final 4, whereas Rakovic only had one match that she won by more than 1 point. In the final, these 2 fought an exciting match, and in the end, Rakovic would pull out an upset by the score of 6-5, securing her second European title. The boys would start off with world number 6 Vushil Ganburov and world number 1 Maxim Vyechkinov would make it to the final of the minus 55 kilogram division. Ganburov would have a tough road to the final, winning every match by 1 point until the final 4. And in complete opposite, Vyechkinov didn't give up a single point until the semifinal, where he won that match 3-1. In the final, we expected a great fight, but unfortunately, we did not see one. They fought to a 0-0 draw, where the Hantai was awarded to Vyechkinov for his second European title. In the minus 61 kilogram division, Philippe Mabik and Philippe Hornak walked through the competition with ease. Both athletes didn't have any of their competition come close to taking them out on their way to the final. And in the final, they proved how evenly matched they were in the division. They fought to a 4-4 tie in that match, where Mabik would be awarded the match due to the Senshu advantage, winning his first continental title. A little different outcome in the minus 68 kilogram division was Suri Stankov and Aladin Malakov. Both cruised to their elimination rounds, but both had tough fights in the semifinals. Both of them just getting out of that round by a score of 3-2. In the final, they also fought to a 0-0 draw, and the Hantai was awarded to Malakov, which gave him gold to go with his silver from last year's European Championships. Both Richard Turkanik and Mihai Dolomin both struggled in the elimination rounds of the minus 76 kilogram division, requiring the Hantai to get them out of their respective pools. Both won their fights in the final 4 by 2 points and made their way to the final. In a close match, Turkanik pulled out a 1-0 victory to secure his first European title. And in the over 76 kilogram division, Vlad Rudenko and Vuk Vucinic make it to the final, albeit taking different routes en route to get there. Vucinic went untouched through the elimination round, where Rudenko had a tough match every step of the way. In the final, it was Vucinic who outscored Rudenko 7-1 on his way to top the podium for his second European title of his career. In the female kata, we got the matchup we were all looking for as in the final, as world number 2 Julia Manka and the world number 1 Rita Marquez Both squared off in a battle of Super Empe, where Marquez would take that match 5-0 to remain perfect in this competition, winning all of her matches 5-0. This is her third European title of her career. Some excitement in the male kata as world number 3 Jose de la Pena and world number 1 Vasco Mateo square off in the final. It was a battle of Kushanku with Mateo running Kishimono and Pena running Chatanara, but in the end, Vasco would take the match 5-0 and secure his second European title. The female cadet and junior combined teams final found Italy face off against Slovenia, where the Ohandai of Italy defeated the Godashio Sho of Slovenia 5-0. And for the boys in the final, it was Italy versus Spain, and this time the unsuit performance of Italy was enough to beat Spain's Anand 5-0. The minus 50 kilogram division started out with two top 10 ranked athletes walking through the division to meet in the final. Ludovica Legittimo and Yulana Markava, who would have a tough final against each other as they fought to a 3-3 tie where Markava would win via the Sensu advantage. This was her first WKF gold medal of her career. The world number 4 Helena Bakovic and the world number 1 Nina Kvasnikova fight their way through the minus 55 kilogram division to face off in the final, where Helena had a long day in the bracket, having a tough fight every step of the way to get there, and it didn't get easier as Kvasnikova would beat her 5-2 in the final to secure a U21 Continental title to go along with her junior and cadet ones, now needing only a veteran one to have one in each age category. Wild start to the minus 61 kilogram division as the world number 1 and 2 both get knocked out in their first fight. Beta Gravicia and Altana Basangova, who was the one who knocked out the world number 1, both ended up in the final after a ton of tough matches on their way. And they had a close one as well, with Gravicia coming out on top 2-1 match to secure her first European title. Arini Katsika and Teodora Kristovic both had pretty easy ascents to the final of the minus 68 kilogram division, with Kristovic taking out the world number 1 in the semifinals to advance, where they would have an evenly matched fight until the end, where Katsika would score 2 points to win the gold by a score of 4-2 and secure her first European title. The over 68 kilogram division was the most stacked, with 5 of the world's top 10 in attendance. The 2 that would make it to the final were Daria Boulay and the world number 1 Daria Fleischer, who both came into the final searching for their first U21 European title. And in the end, it was Boulay as she took the matchup 6-1 and moved up into the world number 2 spot following this event. In what is always the most competitive division, the minus 60 kilogram division found Balsa Vochonik and Guido Schiante fight their way through a tough division, as there wasn't a blowout in a single fight in this division. Vochanovic would take out the world number 1 in the semifinals 4-0, and that was one of the biggest score gaps of the division. In the final, these two fought to a 1-1 tie where Vochanovic was awarded the Hantai in his first European title. World number 1 Georgios Baliotos and Mataj Bele Stoyanovsky would both have a smooth climb to the minus 67 kilogram bracket on their way to the final, where it would be a close matchup between them, but in the end, Bele Janowski would take a 2-0 victory and defeat the defending champion, winning his first European title. The minus 75 kilogram division bracket went according to ranking until the semifinals, where Simon Sekar and Ricardo Franken would emerge and advance into the finals, with Sekar defeating the world number 1 in that round, Franken taking out the world number 6. In the final, Sekar would beat Franken by a score of 3-1 to secure his first European title. Sinan Peljevic and Lucas Buhanicki made easy work of the minus 84 kilogram division, with both of them cruising through the bracket without much resistance on their way to the final, where Buhanicki would put on a show and win the gold by a score of 9-4 and his first European title. And in the last Kumite division, the over 84 kilogram final saw a matchup between Alexander Kozilion and Alexander Davies, both of whom were looking for their first continental title and both having a pretty easy time getting to the final, where Davies would take it up to another level that Kozilion couldn't keep up with, as he won that match 7-2. We got the matchup we wanted to see in the female kata division. Mailing Bui and Paola Lozano both went perfect through the bracket to meet up in the final, where something had to give, and it was Bui's Gankaku that fell short of Lozano's Chatanara Kusanku by a score of 5-0, giving Lozano her 6th European title. The male kata division was more evenly matched with 6 of the world's top 10s in the bracket. The 2 that made it to the final were Anthony Vu and Ivan Montenegro. Vu would opt to run Chatnaro Kusanku, and Montenegro would choose Super Mpe. And we would see an upset as Montenegro would win this match 4-1 over the reigning U21 European and world champion Vu. This was Montenegro's second European title. In the female U21 team kata final, the Czech Republic would face off against Spain, with Spain running Haiku and the Czech Republic opting to run Haiku. And the Czech Republic would win this match by a score of 5-0. In the male team kata, it was a Shotokan showdown with France and Italy, both running Unsu, with Italy pulling out the victory 4-1. The biggest thing I noticed at this event was the amount of Russian and Belarusian athletes present. Now, these two countries are still banned by the WKF. However, they can compete as neutral athletes following the IOC guidelines, which entails rigorous vetting of the athletes to ensure they have no ties to the country's military and they do not openly support the war in Ukraine. Additionally, they cannot wear any national emblems, flags, or have their anthem played. They must compete as an individual neutral athlete. Knowing what they have to go through to be able to compete, I was shocked at how many athletes were still in Cyprus. And not just compete, they did well. Russia won 12 medals, Belarus won 2. So they are starting to come back in bigger numbers, and they're doing well as they return. This is something that we need to take a look at to see how much this shakes up the rankings as they all assimilate back within the WKF. Now, another subject that keeps coming up is the new kata rules. Now, what's on a lot of people's mind right now is how these rules are going to affect people, because it did affect a couple of well-known open circuit athletes at the USANKF senior team trials. Now, I'm not going to break down their performances and what the issues were because I don't know, and no one else does either. The judges saw what they saw, and they docked them for what they docked them for. That information is up for the coaches if they file the protest, but here's the rule that seems to be getting people in trouble. The new rule states any theatrics such as stamping the feet, slapping the chest, arms, or karate gi, or inappropriate exhalation must be considered a very serious fouls by the judges in the evaluation of the performance of the kata. Now, is that open to a lot of subjective opinions? Absolutely. And I'll be the first to admit that there are a lot of this going on within the WKF, and it did need to be curtailed. Wasn't it overcorrection? Probably. Do I think it's time to panic? Absolutely not. Right now, we are still in the adjustment period, and we don't know how this is going to play out. We're only 3 events into the year after this new rule, and some people are starting to freak out about the new changes. I, for one, am not one of those guys, at this point anyway. The Series A did see some inconsistencies with the rule, and senior trials is not the WKF, it's the USANKF. Some may say I'm splitting hairs here, but not really. The Natural Federation is different than the WKF as a whole. That's why we have seen in the past some athletes do not do well in the team trials, but then go and do better than the ones who made the team in the Series A or the Youth League, right? So I'm not saying that the USANKF is definitely represents the WKF in this. And from everything that I just saw at the EKF championships, the people who should have won in kata did. There were no major shockers at this event. So for what it's worth, my opinion is let's just see how this affects further competitions before we all condemn the rule or freak out. And with that, I want to thank you guys for tuning into another episode of The Traditional Way. Join me on the next episode where I'll bring you the results from the Youth League event in Fujairah. Till then, continue to support the Martial Arts Internet Network and make sure you check out the exclusive content available on the main app. Till next time, guys.